Okay. All right.
Just had to make sure.
We'll buy guns. We'll buy guns in a little bit. Anyway, we'll start the meeting, and just so you know, JJ Waldham, who I do not see yet. Do you guys see him?
He just popped in.
Okay, there he is. Hey, JJ.
There we are.
JJ Waldham and myself, Steve Holland, are taking place on a Zoom call, and JJ is in Puerto Rico, and the address is 904 Cali Cross, Mojo, something. Anyway, if you haven't found him yet, you probably won't. And Steve Holland is a Maribred at 700 Gulf Breeze Parkway, Gulf Breeze, Florida. So with that, we will call the meeting to order and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. We'll look for approval or public forum first. Is there anybody in attendance that would wish to speak at public forum?
No, the only person in the room is Caleb. There's no public in it.
Okay, and I do not see anybody on call. Is that true? Then we will move on to the adoption of the agenda. I have one item I would like to add, legislative discussion. Probably, where should we put that? After, right before the commissioner updates. So 2C.
And to that legislative update, Mr. Chair,
Yep.
add approval for a county commissioner interested in the administrator at the legislative.
Thank you. Yes. With that, we will look for adoption of the agenda as amended.
Ludwig will move as amended.
Lundgren will second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lundgren. Any discussion? If not, Debbie, you want to call the roll?
District 3, Commissioner Lundgren. District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. We will look for approval of the minutes of the January 18th regular county board meeting and summary for publication.
Moral second.
Any discussion? If not, Debbie, you want to call the roll?
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lundgren.
Terry, I'm having a little bit of trouble hearing you.
Okay,
But-
how's that?
Okay, yep. Approval of boards, reports and correspondence, the Chemical Health Coalition, Historical Society, and Pine County Land Survey monthly report.
Ludwig will move. Moral second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Moore. Any discussion? If not, Debbie, you want to call the roll?
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lundgren. Aye. District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
All right. You have the consent agenda in front of you. You've had it for a while. Looking for approval for that.
Lovegren will move to accept the consent agenda.
Morrow second.
Motion by Lovegren, seconded by Moore to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
Ludwig, I just have a quick question.
Yep.
Somebody remind me or give me a short explanation of those warrants. How they come back after the agreement?
No, I was looking at that again and
I don't.
Kelly is on the call. Kelly, are you able to give some insight on the?
I am here. I just can hardly hear because there's a ton of background noise.
It's probably,
Oh yeah, there. Steve muted and it's a lot better.
Panera bread.
Steve, you'll have to let those folks know they're gonna have to pipe down.
I'm on my way.
What was the question?
The canceled warrants that are on the consent agenda, just
Just a brief.
how do they get there and what are we doing, I guess is the question.
Okay, yes. So these are warrants that have gone uncashed for at least 3 years. And so rather than carry them on our books, we go through this process of canceling them, which means that we do contact the folks and make sure that they haven't just lost the check and need a new one. But if it continues to go unclaimed, we wait until the summer. Then we end up sending the funds off to the state of the unclaimed dollars. And then the folks can just get the money from there instead of us carrying it on our books forever. Huh?
And then Kelly, there's a next step to that if they sit at the state for a certain amount of time, isn't there?
You know, I guess I don't know that.
Because I'm trying to think, there's been times where you have brought an action to reclaim some of those funds, I thought. Maybe I'm misremembering.
That's what I was remembering too. And I thought we did once. I don't remember.
I have not. You might be thinking about the missing heirs dollars.
Yes. Yep. I'm sorry. I'm convoluting those.
Yep. And so those actually stay with us until the 20-year mark, and then we can get them off our books and they can just go into our general fund. But those don't get sent to the state. They stay with us.
Thank you, Kelly.
You're welcome.
okay. Any other questions? If not, we do have a motion by Lovegren, second by Moore. Debbie, you want to call the roll?
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lovegren. District 4, Commissioner Waldham. District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Looks like he froze.
Yes.
There it is.
Okay,
Oh, he gave thumbs up.
thank you. District 5.
Yes.
Aye.
You.
We got it, JJ.
Okay. We'll move on to the regular agenda, which is the first thing is public hearing ordinance 2022-05, amending the shoreline management ordinance. So we'll have a presentation from staff to start us off.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Caleb Anderson. I'm the Land and Resources Manager in the Planning, Zoning, and Solid Waste Office. And this is an ordinance amendment to the Shoreline ordinance that was recommended by the County Zoning Board for adoption by the County Board of Commissioners. There's two main components to the ordinance. One is kind of pertains to our shoreline zoning map. Back in 1993, when the ordinance was adopted, there was establishment of districts, residential, water-oriented, commercial, general, and it kind of says what types of land uses you can do in that area. But part of the shoreline ordinance covers the floodplain, even where it extends a good distance away from a lake or river. So the floodplain maps have improved over time with improved technology. So we have some floodplain areas that we're not assigned zoning districts. And I've been aware of it for a few years, but it hasn't really been an issue. It's not something that comes up often. But there is one gentleman who wanted to do a project. I think it's actually intends to do mini storage units in Pine City within the mapped floodplain. So this ordinance amendment, and it's barely within the mapped floodplain, but this ordinance amendment kind of provides a mechanism to assign a zoning district to those floodplain areas that were not previously assigned zoning districts. And it specifically amends the zoning ordinance map or the shoreline map to consider that proposed general use district. It's right on the corner of the interstate, just beneath the floodplain elevation, where it would be pretty practical to elevate the site a little bit and build and get some commercial development there. So that is the first portion of the ordinance. And the second portion of the ordinance is a concept that was in front of you back in, I believe it was August or September. And that is variance mitigation. The zoning board had come up with a process where if you're going to apply for a variance, you would have to mitigate the activities just to offset kind of the impact that you may have on the lake or river. We got some concern from the public on that. So you kind of sent it back to them. They worked on it some more, and they had continued engagement with some of the concerned citizens. So we feel pretty comfortable that we've got it to a point that should be palatable. But basically now those variance mitigations are strictly voluntary, where if someone really wants to get a variance, and maybe it's something that past precedent, those things haven't really been approved, but boy, they really want that variance. It kind of gives them an option where, okay, you can propose some mitigation activities to offset your variance. You don't have to, you can apply without, but if you so choose to strengthen your proposal, here are some options. So that's kind of where they landed. And it says right in the language that this is that a applicant may volunteer the following activities. So that is the ordinance amendment, those two components. Any questions for me?
Mr. Chair. Is this the same one where we discuss setbacks and averaging between buildings too? Isn't that why
This is different than that.
So is that one resolved?
That originally the zoning board had discussed, should we maybe just not let people average their setbacks? So if there's 100-foot setback and your neighbors are at 60 feet from the lake and the other neighbors at 80, then you can come up to the average of them of 70. And the zoning board at one time thought maybe we should take away that relief and kind of, in order to protect these lakes so that we're getting a pretty more consistent setback of, in this case, 100 feet. That was dropped and compromised with the language said that was available to structures, and they refined that to be for dwellings. So if you wanted to build like a gazebo closer or a shed, those things wouldn't have the same relief, but a dwelling would.
Okay,
And that was adopted in the last
that's right. Okay.
Shoreline Ordinance Amendment.
Thank you. And then I have one more.
Yeah.
The floodplain versus floodway, because this comes to me from the last one we just did. There's a difference. And then the numbers that you use for elevations, there was an issue there too. Is that going to rise again?
That will likely continue to be something that landowners in the floodplain struggle with.
So
I think it's irrelevant to this ordinance amendment,
oh,
though.
we have to use a number for elevations in our ordinance though, right? So which one are we going to use?
So the ordinance itself does not adopt the elevation. Basically, those are FEMA models that have prescribed the 100-year flood elevation at these different segments along the rivers or lakes.
Yeah.
So
should
in
we?
this particular case, and I don't know how much you want to, there's a certain portion of the floodplain that's less studied. It's called Zone A. There's a portion that's more studied called Zone AE, where on Beacon, we have more specific data about those floodplains. So Pokegama Lake is zoned Zone A. There is not a specific data layer where the floodway is. And basically structures are not allowed in the floodway. It's considered extremely high risk. So the DNR kind of uses, I don't know, their staff hydrologists have some tools they use to kind of make those determinations. That's about beyond my expertise level. But they made the determination that that most recent building request on Pokegama Lake was in the floodway.
Okay, so I think you answered my question. So you let the DNR decide the elevation, but then we're always gonna have that argument with FEMA numbers that are gonna, so we'll have to have that argument every time.
Yeah, the DNR provides us the data about the elevations expressed in feet, but then that floodplain is divided into flood fringe, outer lying, and floodway. In some places, that's really clear cut, where it's well studied. Some places, it's a little more fluid and subject to hydrology interpretation.
Okay. Thank you.
Anybody else have questions? Well, by the way, we'll open it up to the board members for questions at this time. I don't see anybody from the public, but if somebody is there and has a question, the public portion is now open, so you could ask that now.
Chair, there is no one in the meeting room.
Okay. Well, then we will.
I guess,
close
Mr. Chair, if I could.
Yeah, JJ, we'll come back.
Okay.
As long as we'll just follow down here. We'll close the public portion and then come back to the county board for discussion. So go ahead, JJ.
Yeah, I guess I just need more clarification on, what exactly are you going by? Somebody wants to build something. And I guess what I'm seeing here, and this is also subject for a later discussion we got to have, there's just some confusion with landowners. So what they can and can't do. I see some confusion where they get permission to do something. And, I'm confident that when that communication is happening, they take it as good, honest communication, because they are making major investments on their properties, whether it's, buying all the materials, lining up contractors, even having materials staged, set, ready to go, to sometimes a couple $100,000, and then all of a sudden their project gets halted or stopped. I guess I need some help here getting my mind wrapped around this, where if there's a high water mark, okay, who's holding the tape measure? Who determines the high water mark? If there isn't a clear one, well, like even in baseball, the tie goes to the runner. Shouldn't the homeowner have, so to speak, be the runner if there's something unclear? Shouldn't we be favoring the taxpayer or the homeowner? And then again, if somebody gets as far as starting construction, building, having material, I look at that as an action they took because they are confident that they were given the proper right information, or they wouldn't have did it. I need to get more information on this. You have FEMA numbers. If FEMA establishes a high water mark, do we go by that? County, DNR. There's a lot of things here that I guess I need clarification. I hate to see these homeowners and people trying to build and then having their progress and their livelihood.
JJ, I don't think any of that is changed by the adoption of what is being talked about today. What we're doing here is there's some changes that have happened with the being able to define floodplains, and it's always tricky along the Snake River because much of that land is low lying and might have been farmed for a while. And then, as people want to build houses on it, they find out that it is 2.5 feet below the floodplain. Even though, 50 years ago, somebody might have had a house and it might have flooded 6 times. That's, it's just clearing up some stuff here where, the high water mark is I believe determined by, is it the DNR?
Corps of Engineers?
Two different ways to define the ordinary high water level, and that's more of a shoreline standard when we talk about the distance back that you have to be from a lake and river. You can do it by vegetation, and on many of the lakes and rivers, you can do it by elevation. So to save homeowners the expense, we often defer to vegetation because we don't have the surveying equipment to do that in-house. It's a very expensive equipment. And to ask every homeowner to hire a survey would be excess expense. So we do it based on vegetation and we make a measurement. If the homeowner does not like that measurement, where, okay, we can't permit this, they do have the option to hire a surveyor to measure based off of the elevation. And I guess to answer your point, we've had a couple contentious issues come up where your point is very well taken. Nobody, and the zoning board is kind of the one that a lot of that ends up responding to those issues where someone ends up applying for a variance, or there's an appeal procedure. If county staff make a decision and the homeowner doesn't agree with it or thinks we're wrong, you can also, there's a process to appeal zoning decisions, and that goes to the zoning board. Well, staff decisions. So I guess there's those checks and balances are in place, but I guess no one's enjoying when there is boo-boos and misunderstandings. No one's having any fun with that. So I think there have been some good lessons for both townships as well as county in advising those homeowners, and really that, our message to folks has always been, we strongly encourage securing permits before making investment. And, when you take in the peak season, 100 calls a week, does that get said at top volume on every call like it should? Maybe not. So I think when there are boo-boos, we certainly try to learn all we can from those. So to avoid those, that's a shared goal.
Yeah, I guess I'd like to, if you could, I guess I'd like to understand then the appeal process a little better. If you have anything, for that, when something that you say a boo-boo, yeah, these are getting expensive for some people, and I guess I'd like to see, the appeal process, or if you could help me, please, just to understand it better. If you got a set of orders, how the appeal process works, who you appeal to, then even maybe if you've had a recent one, or how, to learn from other people's appeals, how many we had in the, in recent, similar, same.
So variances are different than appeals, and that variances are asking for relief from the rules. They're saying there's something unique to property, why I shouldn't be held to this black and white standard. Appeals are, the way I describe it to people, is that appeals are saying, you've done your own research and you think the county staff makes it. And we don't take those lightly. When there's expensive projects, I usually check with our county attorney, and I often check with the DNR. So I explain that to people, that I'm doing everything I can here. If there's a means by which I can approve this, it would happen. And so I haven't had an appeal since I've been here, because we go through that level of effort. We have had variances though, and then those go to the zoning board. So if they do appeal, it goes to the zoning board. The zoning board can basically review our work, and I suspect they can reverse it, our decision. If there are variances, well, then that's where most people go. They ask for relief, strict rules. Then it goes to the zoning board and they make the decision.
Yeah, if you could, yeah, I'd like to just see what the next step would be to move towards appeals, just so I can get an understanding of that if they can. Thank you.
This is Dave Minky. If I can just ask a clarifying question. And so JJ, on your inquiry, there's cases that Caleb was referring to that are all within the county ordinance jurisdiction. And then there are also sometimes cases that have multiple approvals that are required before somebody can move forward. And so there might be some cases where there are multiple approvals where some other jurisdiction may give approval, and after the fact, the applicant may find out that there's an additional approval from some other agency required. Is that your experience as well?
I guess when somebody gets turned down for the variance, their next, opportunity to get their project done, it's kind of hard to return windows and return stuff when it's already been opened and it's been screw bolted in it. I guess then their next logical thing would be to appeal. So I guess I would like to learn how that process works, because like Caleb had just said, an appeal would overturn an original decision. So with what's going on now.
An appeal of a zoning board decision would go appealed through district court. Appeal of a staff decision would go to zoning board.
But today, we are talking about
Yep.
This ordinance 22-05. All discussion is good, but let's concentrate on the ordinance 22-05. Does anybody have any more questions about this ordinance?
Mr. Chair, I do.
Yes.
So Caleb, this has been a pretty contentious thing with some of the people up in Sturgeon Lake. So I know that they've been attending a lot of the meetings, and I haven't attended the last couple, I'm sorry, but where are they at with this? I really like that this is voluntary. That was a huge step and would probably settle a lot of it.
So I heard from one of those individuals that from Sand Lake that he still would rather see the whole thing go away, but he expressed to me that he was going to be okay with this. And then another thing that's important to recognize is that up in Sturgeon Lake area, they're under Windermere's zoning jurisdiction, where we feel this is not making the ordinance any more restrictive. Therefore, Windermere would not need to adopt this. Generally, the township has to be as restrictive, but this is voluntary language.
You're muted, Steve.
Sometimes it doesn't say I'm muted, but can you hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Any other questions by anybody? If not, we would then look for a motion to approve this ordinance change or update, I mean.
This is Terry. I'll make that motion.
Moore will second.
Got a motion by Moore or by Lovegren, seconded by Moore. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Debbie, you want to call the roll?
I do have a quick question. So this is to adopt ordinance 2022-05 and then to approve the updated shoreland management ordinance as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Which is what this is. Yep.
Moore?
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lopez? Aye. District 4, Commissioner Waldham?
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
1, Chair Holland.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you, Caleb.
Thank you.
Thanks, Caleb.
We will now talk about the Clean Water Fund, One Watershed, One Plan Program Grant Agreement. Caleb, you got that too?
Yes, sir. So we were awarded grant funding from the Minnesota Board of Water and Soil Resources to make a watershed plan for the Kettle River and Upper St. Croix rivers. And basically, as you're aware, these watershed plans are intensive projects. They take 12 to 24 months to put the plan in place. Once adopted, though, there's implementation funding, non-competitive funding that's set in place to do projects within these watersheds. So there's a great deal of incentive to spend the time on them. So on this one, the majority of the watershed is within Pine County, unlike the previous watersheds that we've participated in those plans on. So Pine County and Pine SWCD have stepped up a little bit, or are proposing to step up more here on facilitation of it. So the Pine County is proposing to act as the grantee or fiscal agent for the project. And the total grant is $194,434. So we would be coordinating those funds, but we are proposing to execute subcontracts so that Pine SWCD would be kind of the day-to-day contact, assembling the policy committee meetings, sending out those meeting materials, coordinating with the meeting facilitators and any public inquiries, things like that. They're kind of drive the bus, so to speak. And then we also are proposing, so that would be a subcontract from Pine County delegating those roles to Pine SWCD. We are also proposing a subcontract to Carleton SWCD. They've got a gal there that is a fantastic plan writer. She wrote most of the Nemadji watershed plan. She's very effective, and they have other staff there as well that support her. So we're proposing to execute a subcontract with them. And one of the things is, we've had some issues with some of the consultants where we feel that there could be some value in keeping this closer to home. People who have much more investment in the project, and frankly, Carleton SWCD has already demonstrated their ability to do that. So we would still be looking at some point to consider a consultant for meeting facilitation, just to kind of have a neutral party kind of gathering input from all the stakeholders who will be at the table. But so in order to get it all started, we've been working behind the scenes kind of to get that memorandum of agreement going, to make a work plan, a timeline, a budget. All of that has been kind of behind the scenes, ungrant funded work. So we're finally at the point where we're able to submit those to Bowser, and we have the grant contract today that we would like you to consider approval of. As well as those subcontracts, and then work going forward will be reimbursable to that grant contract. Any questions?
Caleb, I want to thank you for your work, because as we've seen these other watershed plans unfold, somebody else has taken the lead, and it's usually a county that has the most river through it, so to speak, or the most watershed. And so it's logical that Pine County would step up to the plate in this case. It's really awesome if you've got somebody that's local and familiar with putting together one of those plans, because it is a tremendous amount of work. So that would be awesome. And have a next door neighbor do that. Soil and Water are the people that really do the major lifting on these things. So I know you recognize that. So thank you.
We will move it. Hold on a second.
I missed that.
Motion by Ludwig and second by Moore.
Okay. They cranked up Bob Dylan for a second here. They drowned it out.
I like the music they're playing there, though.
Yeah. Okay, is there any discussion?
Just a comment, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I agree. It was great working with Carlton on the Magic Plan. It's a great group, and I think we're gonna have a good product come out of this.
Thank you. Debbie, you want to call the roll?
Sure. District 3, Commissioner Lupkin.
Aye.
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
All right.
I have one other question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Motion include the designation of the county auditor treasurer as the grantee, their
Yes.
authorized representative, or do we need a separate one? It was inclusive? Okay, thank you.
Yes. Okay, that'll move us on to our next item, which is a legislative discussion. And the session just started yesterday. And I just wanted to reiterate that they're going to argue for a few months now about how much surplus they have and how they're going to give it back. And my argument has always been that until they make good on all the agreements they've made with counties in the past, and do that subtraction from their supposed surplus, they don't have that much of a surplus. They can't continue to say they have a $7 billion surplus and prorate our probation at 29%. They can't say that they've got a $7 billion surplus and not be able to afford to update SSIS for our health and human services. I'm all for not paying any more taxes than I have to, but the problem is they leave the burden to us, and then we have to make up the difference in property tax. So that's my little soapbox for today.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if we could do the housekeeping consideration of approval for attendance by commissioners and the administrator at the AMC conference and be sure we take action on that, then I can come back and maybe give a little more detail on some of the issues you've raised.
That's a wonderful idea. So let's do that. If somebody wants to make a motion to allow any commissioner, yep.
Second.
Motion by Ludwig, second by Lovegren to allow any commissioner and administrative staff to attend the AMC legislative conference. Any discussion? All in favor? Debbie, you want to call the roll?
District 4, Commissioner Waldham.
Yes.
District 5, Commissioner Ludwig.
Aye.
District 1, Chair Holland.
Yes.
District 2, Commissioner Moore.
Aye.
District 3, Commissioner Lubgren.
Aye.
Thank you.
I think we should add. And
Add what, Matt? I missed that.
built,
Hilt?
yeah,
Yes.
land valuations have moved a lot since they served.
And so, and Steve, you really teed it up well in that the session started yesterday, so we will have months of proposals and counter proposals. And so with a $7.7 billion deficit, there are significant requests for additional funding for various programs. We know the governor has rolled out his initial budget, which includes funding, additional funding for county probation as well as corrections in general. That has been a topic that we have advocated for years now. And Steve, you specifically referenced that in your comments, where the state in the most recent year, I think, was funding 29% versus 50%. And so in rough terms, that's a difference of a whole probation officer for us. There has been significant work on study committees. There's been 2 of them, one created by the legislature and one created by the governor. I think the governor's panel's report is due this week. And so there has been a lot of review of corrections across the board. And so we are hopeful that this is the session where the state steps up and fulfills its commitment. On some other pieces, we have a meeting scheduled for Thursday with Senator Rarick in conjunction with the American Indian County training that's at Grand Casino Hinckley. And Terry, I think you're planning to attend that, and Steve, you'll be able to join via video. But that Senator Rarick has been agreeable to renew his bill, which in essence is a SSIS, which is the software that social services uses for child protection, to update and modernize that. And in the governor's proposal is $77.5 million to transform human service delivery technology and modernization. And so we're hopeful that this bill will be very timely and get some funding support in the governor's proposal. There's also $100 million in public safety aid, which I don't have the detail on that, but that we know there's been a lot of talk by both parties of increasing public safety. And so we're hopeful that that will give some relief to the sheriff's offices in particular, and even attorneys' offices with investigating, prosecuting public safety. The PILT, I know we have that on our agenda, and Arrowhead usually carries the bucket on that.
Bach is carrying the bill.
Okay.
And has good support, and he's got 3 million extra for northern counties alone.
I know there are some other staff on the call. I don't know if any of them have any insight they want to share from what they're hearing from their associations on what might be successful priorities. But certainly we can, looks like Becky has popped up.
Yes, thank you. My name is Becky Foss, Director of Pine County Health and Human Services. I do believe we have some traction gaining and gained and momentum for system modernization in health and human services. Just feel all of our systems that we use in financial assistance, child support, and social services are very outdated. And our field staff are getting super frustrated because if they get to SSIS after 5 minutes, where they have to document and do all their case plans and their notes, then it might take 5 minutes just to get to a work group, and then another 5 minutes to get to the place where they enter a case note or an activity. And that again takes away time from the families that we're serving and from our community partners. And it's just not a good way to support the outcomes that we want for our department or for our community. And furthermore, our systems really help us. That's our mode for billing a lot of our work. And so if we are not successfully billing for our work because it's becoming too time consuming and too slow, that's problematic for, honestly, for county taxpayers. But I do believe we have some traction going for system modernization.
Thank you. Thanks, Becky. Well, any opportunity you get to have any conversations with our area legislators, please use that time to reiterate our thoughts, that's for sure. Okay, we'll move on to commissioner updates. Arrowhead.
Yeah, I'll take that, Mr. Chair. I'm gonna just keep right on going with updates because that's mostly what it was. So, yeah, Senator Bach is carrying that PILT bill, and he's, Ongaro was reported that there's 3 million extra in that bill just to the northern tier. So it's gonna be good, and it has good bipartisan support right now. And then they're optimistic on probation because that also has good bipartisan support. I think due to the public safety push and stuff like that. There is a wild card in the mental health funding. I think it's the Department of Human Services wants to take the money and use it statewide for the whole state instead of just have it carved out. But Sue Oberhosen from NAMI is supporting it stays the way it is, and they allocate new funds for the rest of the state. So that's who knows what's going to end up there. And the other interesting thing is, and when you talk about the probation funding, is that Minnesota's in the top 5 states for community corrections, and we have the lowest incarceration rate. And then there's this move right now, and I attended a meeting last week with our probation officers, and we're moving to the JDAI, the Juvenile Detention Alternative Initiative, which the Minnesota DOC reached out to Pine County because we have such a great model with our staff that it's all this recognition, and they want to kind of see what we're doing. And then I just received a text while I was this morning from, because I'm on the public safety committee at AMC, that is the JDAI is getting moved out. They want to move it out of the Department of Corrections and into the public safety committee. So that's probably going to happen too. So we're going to have a meeting on that coming up. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I think that's about it for the catchment dollars are still a wild card for us right now. Who knows? That's those mental health dollars that from the 2003 bill law.
Yeah, we've relied on those.
Yes.
In central Minnesota. Snake River watershed, you meet?
Yeah, sorry. So we did meet and we, they're proposing 8 projects right now. 4 of them are in Pine County, 2 on Cross Lake, 1 in Pokegama, 1 on Snake River, and then the other 4 are in Kanabec County. It's helping the landowners there to do some stuff. They came up with the new chairs and the vice chairs, and it was a learning process for me because I voted and then I was told that I was voting in the wrong group of people. So I'll get there, but yeah, it was an interesting meeting. It was a good meeting. Yeah.
Thank you. Low Lakes and Pines, we met Monday. I guess the 2 big things that came out of there is we have lost 2 board members in the last 2 months. Gene Anderson, county board member from Kanabec County, and most recently Mike Robinson, county board member from Chisago County. Both of those people were on the Lakes and Pines boards for years and years, and so we'll miss them there. And then Bob, the executive director, announced that he's going to retire this coming fall, so we'll be on a search for a new executive director. I'll move on to the Lower St. Croix partnership. I think the interesting thing that came out of there is we said when we made this formal agreement a year ago that we would take a look at our organizational structure in a year, and so our year is up. And I think Susan Morris and myself were the 2 people that argued that we just form a joint powers, and because that's really what we are. And now it seems like everybody thinks that's what we should do. So we'll see where that leads. Everybody's supposed to go home and bring that back to their groups and come back to our next meeting, which will be in March. And the Lower St. Croix is actually in the implementation stage. They have several projects going on. Many of those projects go back to local soil and water groups, but the Lower St. Croix, as a group, has hired an agronomist to work with area farmers and help determine what processes need to go on to their farms. So that's a good thing. Relax band. Terry, you want to report on that?
We had talked about, you know, if road signs were put out in their area and that type of stuff, and it was going to be checked on to see, because there was kind of a question as to whether or not it did happen. One of the things that we talked about, and it was interesting because Matt brought it up this morning, is getting some emergency services out in the eastern part of our county. So it would be like Ogama, Wilma, Arna, New Dozy, probably.
I think from 48, 30, and 32.
Yep. Yep. And so it was, you know, to be able to say that we had talked about that with the band. And so we need to continue that and to know that there's a need in other areas where they're seeing the same thing that Ogama was seeing when they came and talked to me about it. We need to see how we can help the residents out there so that they have emergency services when they need them. One of the things that I found out from Joe was that it takes at least right around 30 minutes for somebody to get out there to service the people out east. And that's if we have an ambulance in Sandstone or Hinckley at that time. If we have to go through more someplace else, it can be 40 or more minutes to get somebody out there. So if any public want to start raising their hand to somebody who wants to be trained to help serve these people out there, that would be wonderful. We had talked about the opioid settlement, and I was surprised. I thought that the Mille Lacs Band was part of the opioid settlement, but it doesn't sound like they are.
There is a tribal component, though.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. So, but talking about having our services help them with theirs also, which, you know, it's helping our residents. I believe that that's probably where we were going to be going anyway. They are really supporting the NLX. And then we talked about the budget and the surplus. And with that, they're hoping to get the Highway 35 exchange looked at too. And they've been talking with the governor and representatives down there to see if they can get that going. Anything you wanted to add, Steve?
No, I just think, you know, we have encouraged them to work with our economic development people as they develop that area south of Hinckley, and maybe we can do some joint ventures there, including the exchange. Maybe we can think of a good way to make that all happen.
I can just add to that
Yep.
Leslie and I did have a video conference with Dustin and Beth from Mille Lacs Corporate Ventures last week to talk more generally about economic development, broadband, to talk about the I-35 project. And then we also invited them to present to the HRA EDA. And so they are going to do that either in February or March, just to start building that relationship now that we have an EDA, HRA that's focused on economic development, to be sure that we're coordinating and cooperating where we can.
Excellent. Which, Terry, did you go to NLX?
I did. We have a new chairman. It's Councilman Andrew Johnson from the city of Minneapolis. And then he's a hoot. One of the gentlemen from Superior, he resigned from the position, and then the Mayor Payne, he took his spot, and then he's the vice chair. And what they're really believing is that this is the year that there's going to be money out there because there's such a huge surplus, and they'll be able to get the NLX going through. There was a lot of positive energy for that. There's an appetite for 2 bills in bonding. Democrats want 3 bills. The Republicans want 1.5. They're looking at an $8 billion surplus redistricting year and election year. They figure all that's going to be a benefit to get things rocking.
All right. Housing and economic development.
we had our meeting on the 26th. I'm gonna refer to Dave when we get to the, it was basically, getting their feet under them meeting, and they went through they have the manager reports and financial reports and everything, and it was, but I think the largest conversation took place in the strategic planning and the organizational update stuff. And the part I think I will cover is they really want to focus on our website and the deliverables that can happen on our website in case somebody just pings Pine County what's available, and then the dots are all gonna be connected right there, like who do you contact for, developing and, sewer stuff and everything. They want to make links for everything in one spot and try to connect as many townships even as they can to that system. So there's going to be some outreach there. Then I don't know, Dave, you can jump in here because there was so much that I was just learning on the fly there.
Yeah, and JJ, you were on that meeting too.
Yeah.
So feel free to chime in.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So on the website is a big one, and it's really a visit Pine County concept so that it makes it easier for people who are passing through. If you're going to the ice arena or the high school for a tournament or something and you're from out of town and you want to get lunch or something, there's easy accessible information. There was a conversation on their priorities, and I'm looking at the minutes because I thought they had pinged out 3 or 4 of them.
They joined some organization that
NARRO, the National Association of Housing Administrators, maybe, whatever, agencies. But it's a state chapter, and it is the organization that housing officials participate in. They did make me their regular, or I want to say indefinite executive director, which I think is helpful in moving forward, that we can try to take care of their organizational records, management, et cetera. Leslie can focus on the projects, and then the board members can focus on the vision and building those relationships outside the organization.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? Okay, so when we met with the broadband, one of the things that we talked about was doing the Google, getting things out on the system with the Chamber of Commerce. And because Leslie's in that meeting, I'm assuming that that's going to be part of that process with the web designs and all that. Okay, yeah, that's exciting. I think it's going to be a good project getting things out there.
Yeah, and there was discussion about broadband also. I mean, that's all in the loop there.
It all intermingles, yeah, big time.
And then also at that meeting, we did present the letter and information to go out to the cities and townships to invite them to participate in the EDA. And I think the materials are clear, except the statute is so convoluted that you kind of read it and scratch your head. So the Housing and Redevelopment Authority portion of the authority that they have remains unchanged. So the HRA operates countywide. The HRA can levy countywide without anybody doing anything, and has that authority regardless of what the city or the township might do. The EDA authorities can only be exercised in jurisdictions that elect to participate. And so we did send out a kind of a model resolution if those jurisdictions want to opt in. And there was some conversation that we should try to get to the Township Officer Association in the spring, and then also be available if any township wanted follow-up, or city or township wanted follow-up, that we could meet with them. And I did receive some feedback from one of the townships asking for some clarification, and so maybe some of you have as well. That just is, I guess those that want to opt in, I think are going to be the ones that have current development. I anticipate the cities will do that. I anticipate some of the townships or the smaller cities that don't see a local role in economic development may just take no action or may affirmatively opt out.
Thank you. Under other, I have 2 things, and one would be broadband. Terry and I and several staff members continue to go to several broadband meetings a month. We are still kind of in this Blandon Foundation group, and we have an opportunity to get $100,000 grant from Blandon to do what they call small projects. So we have kind of narrowed that down to this Google project that Terry mentioned, and then building out to 2 or 3 town halls so they can have Wi-Fi available off of those town halls. And what else, Terry?
Working with the cellular tower to see if we can get better service so that people can.
Yep. But we are moving forward. We do have SCI was at the meeting and talked about they're building to a cell phone tower by Carrick someplace, and talked about being able, as they're building along Highway 23, they're putting pedestals that they will be able to drop to homes in the future. East Central Energy was at the meeting. They are in the midst of a huge study, and if they get some grant funding, they will begin to build in their 14 county service area, which includes a huge part of Pine County. And so we're excited about the opportunities that are just probably around the corner.
I'll add to that. It was really, I loved how Hometown Fiber stepped up when we had a resident in Royalton Township where across the border in Chisago, they have really good internet service with CenturyLink, but CenturyLink will not cross the street because they have that contract with the people in Chisago County. And Hometown Fiber stepped up and said, we can help you, reach out to us. And if we can get enough people, we can help you. So it's fun watching these providers come forward and say, hey, we want to be part of this mix and we want to help here. So it was really, that was exciting. I think one of the hardest things was, this is for $100,000 grant that we met this time. And it's to do 4 projects, 4 $25,000 projects. And, that doesn't go far. It doesn't go far at all. And so these people are saying our service is horrible. And it's like, we're not giving up on you. We're still going there. But this is just Band-Aids. We're doing the Band-Aids.
Did that require a match from us at all?
No.
No.
$100,000 grant from Blandon to do these projects, like to take the Wi-Fi out to help cellular service, that type of stuff. I have one more other.
Yeah, and so do I, but go ahead, Terry.
Okay, so I was with Matt on that JDAI call, and the one thing that I just want to give a shout out to, we've got our Sheriff's Department, our Human Service Department, our Probation Department, our Attorney's Office, I think the judges, these people are all working really, really hard to keep our youth out of going into detention centers and that type of stuff. Out of home placements, yep. And one of the things that they talked about is that if you are detained, if you go into a detention center, you're 3 times more likely to get into trouble again than if you do not. If they can keep you home, or if they can, help you with other services, you're 3 times more likely to not get into trouble. And so we have some people that are working really hard to help our youth and our families so that we do not have that out of home placement. So I just want to give a shout out to our human services, our sheriff's office, our attorney's office, our everybody who's working with the system. It was really exciting for me to see all of our employees that were on this call to find out more about this program. So I think it's a good program that we signed up for.
Thank you, Terry.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
can I just add something to that quick? I know
you bet. Yep.
The other really important thing there with the JDAI is that it's not going to sacrifice public safety.
Right.
If there's, if a young person commits a crime and there's a danger to the public or himself, there still will be custody, just because you have to. So it's the in-between issues where you could, by statute, do something, but do you have to? Where, do you have to put a label on some young kid for a small violation, just because it's the most convenient thing to do at the time. Things like that.
I remember when Jerry and I were doing foster care, we had a lot of kids and we had them for truancy. And you think how many dollars we spent for kids to be in somebody's home because they weren't going to school. Where now we can work with the families and help the families so that they can stay there, and just the cost savings that go with that. Yeah, it's what they are looking for. And this is our probation department is looking for families. If there's anybody out there educated in how to deal with mental health, who would be willing to be foster families for mental health, because it's a hard area. And so, but they're really searching to get families to step up that will be able to help with that area so that we can have a safe place for kids to go.
Thanks, guys. And my other is, we had a Northeast Regional Radio Board, the ECEB board anyway. Most of that board meeting was reorganization. We re-elected Marv Bodie, County Commissioner from Carleton County, to be the chairman. And then we run these meetings jointly, kind of like the Snake River, but with the RAC, which is really the guys that use the equipment, and Scotty Grace is our rep on that board. He's absolutely awesome. And so we're lucky to have somebody like that with the level of expertise that's able to be at the meeting. And it's way over somebody like my head. So anyway, that's it on that. Any others?
Mr. Chair, can I just
Yes.
plug the legislative conference? I mean, just thinking about all the conversation we had today on things that weren't directly on the agenda. Most of them track back to either responding to a state mandate or responding to a lack of funding for a state mandate. And the best way to have that conversation is to have people in St. Paul meeting with our legislators. And so if you can check your calendars, and if you can be in St. Paul for one day or the other day, it's a 2-day conference. If you can't do both, you can certainly go for one as well. So if you can check your calendars and just let Debbie know if you want lodging, today is the deadline for that.
And what's the date?
March 2nd and 3rd.
Thank you.
I see no other business. Check your calendars for upcoming meetings. David and Terry, I believe you said we have a meeting that's available on Zoom on Thursday with Senator Rarick. And is that at 10 o'clock?
Nope, that's going to be early. I believe it's 8:15 or 8:45.
Okay, I can make it then. I have a Council on Aging meeting at 10, but I'll make the
Okay.
8:45.
Short one, because doesn't the conference start at 9?
The registration
Well,
9. I think the conference kicks off at either 9:30 or 10.
Okay.
So, but yeah, we don't have to be long. And I think the
Okay.
senator is in agreement.
Yeah, I did talk with Jason the other day, and I did tell him that I have a hard time calling him senator, that he's still Jason. But that's okay. So sorry. Yeah.
all right.
Everything's
We'll
good.
declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. See ya.
See you, JJ.
See you, JJ. Stay
Yep, take
warm.
care. Yeah. Yeah, you as well.